Bore da i chi gyd, a diolch yn fawr iawn i chi am ymuno gyda ni ar gyfer ein gwefan heddi i baratoi i ddarparu'r Cymhwyster dilyniant mewn plymio a gwresogi. Good morning to you all, and thank you very much for joining us for our webinar on how to prepare to deliver the progression qualification in plumbing and heating. Rydym yn gweithio adre, felly ymddeiriadau ymlaen llaw am unrhyw sŵn yn y cefndir ac unrhyw oedi yn y sleidiau. We are all working from home, therefore I apologise in advance for any background noise and any delay in the slides. Dyma'r webinar gyntaf yn y meysydd masnach unigol ar gyfer y Cymhwyster dilyniant. Gallwch gyfrestru ar weddill y gwebinarau yma ar wefan Sgiliau i Gymru. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd am ymunodd yn y gwebinarau ar gyfer y sylfaen. Mae bob recordiad ar wefan Sgiliau i Gymru. This is the first in a series of webinars on the individual trade-specific areas for the progression qualification. The links to register on these webinars can be found on the Skills for Wales website. Thank you to all who joined the Foundation webinars. All these recordings can also be found on the Skills for Wales website. Fe fyddwch yn derbyn e-bost cyn diwedd y webinar gyda link i'n harolwg a'r pwynt pŵer yma yn y Gymraeg a'r Saesneg. Byddem ddiolchgar iawn pydach yn cymeryd yr amser i lenwi ein harolwg. Mae eich adborth yn werthfawr iawn i ni. You will receive an email before the session ends with a link to a survey and also this PowerPoint in English and Welsh. We would be very grateful if you could take the time to fill in this survey as your feedback is very valuable to us. Dyma beth byddwn ni'n mynd trwyddo o bore yma. This is what we'll be discussing this morning. Fe fyddwn ni'n rhoi cyflwyniadau gan esbonio pam y cymwysterau newydd yma yn cymeryd lle, gan edrych ar strwythur yr unedau ac yn rhoi amlinelliad o'r asesiadau. Fyddwn yn edrych ar yr adnoddau sydd ar gael i chi ac yna symud ymlaen at y camau nesaf. Bydd cyfle ar y diwedd i chi ofyn unrhyw gwestiynau. Plis rhowch eich cwestiynau yn y tab cwestiynau sydd ar y llaw dde o'ch sgrin. We will be going over the transformation of these new qualifications, and we'll be looking at the progression qualification content, structure of the unit and outline of the assessments. There will be an opportunity at the end for you to ask us any questions, therefore please feel free to type in your questions in the questions tab on the right hand side of your screen. The presentation will last around an hour with half an hour for questions at the end. Dyma i chi eich cyflwynwr heddi. Here is your presenter today. We can have the next slide, please, Jason.
Sorry, I think I've just, there's a slide with myself on there.
Okay, thank you. Not sure if anybody else can see it, but I can only see the first screen. So I'd like to croeso I Jason Marsland o EL, bydd yn rhoi'r cyflwyniad I chi heddi. So Jason Marsland from EL will be our presenter today. But before we move on to the presentation, if we can launch the poll, we'll ask you a quick poll, we'll ask you a quick question. Felly, sut byddwch yn disgrifio eich dealltwriaeth o'r Cymhwyster dilyniant gyda 5 y rhif uchaf? So how would you rate your understanding of the progression qualification with 5 being the highest number? If you could put your answer, just click on the relevant number with 5 being your highest number, please. Newn ni roi ychydig o eiliadau I chi gael cyfle I ateb. Give you a few more seconds to make sure everybody's had a chance to put their answers in. Okay, thank you, Jason. I can't see the results there on the screen. I'm not sure if anybody else can. I'm not sure if I've got issues on my end. But I can see that 75% of you press number 3, so just the middle. Fi hyd yn ffindo fe'n ddiddorol iawn I weld y rhifau hyn. Felly gobeithio bydd diwedd y gyflwyniad bydd fwy o wybodaeth gyda chi. 75% of you put number 3. I always find this very interesting, and hopefully by the end of this presentation you will have a greater understanding. Hoffwn nawr eich trosglwyddo I Jason Marsland a fydd yn eich tywysg trwy y sleidiau nesaf. I would like to now pass you over to Jason Marsland, who will now take you through the next few slides. Diolch, Jason. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Darparu'r. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Marsland. I'm now going to take you through the next slides. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a recap on how we've got here. I'm then going to look at the unit content. We'll then spend some time around the assessments, and then we're just going to finish off looking at the resources. So I'm going to go through the presentation, so please at any time type your questions in at the side and we'll go through them at the end. If there's anything that you want to pick up at the time, please put it in the questions and I'll try and pick it up. Well, please be mindful, I'm looking at questions, I'm doing the presentation, so I'm mainly going to focus on the presentation. So as we start on this today now, as we look at how we've got here. So basically we had the sector review. When that went out, it was in February 2018. Qualification Wales published a Building the Future report, which was a sector review of qualifications and the qualification system in construction and the built environment in Wales. The report summarised the views of learning providers, a range of professionals and representative bodies, together with more than 100 employers and over 900 learners. Here are the main findings that we found. Inconsistent assessment practice. Some areas of learning not effectively assessed. Learners need to deal with a broader range of tasks and problem solve. So these are the things that we found. Also, we have to make sure that when we do this, it has to meet the skills needs of Wales. There are over 400 qualifications currently. So the idea is, again, to reduce the complexity and make it more coherent. So you know the qualifications that we've got. You've got clear pathways through it. And again, clear sight from foundation, progression, into a framework, and then into working into HE. And one of the key things as well is portability within Wales and further afield across all the home nations. So that's the key areas that it picked up on. So that from the report then, it then led into the stakeholder engagement. So we looked at how the qualifications needed to be developed. We used technical consultants from across Wales, technical working groups and forums. So we had stakeholder engagement, we had involvement with BAC. We've actually got a Welsh plumbing focus group, which hopefully you're all part of. If not, can you please look at sending me an email to join that, because it's going to be something useful as we move on. With this plumbing focus group, we've got to this point, we've been involved, or the group's been involved with developing the qualification and assessments to this point. But then what I want to do is, as we move into delivery, the plumbing focus group will be a great way of sharing experiences, helping problem solve with issues, because no doubt if one person's had a problem, somebody else is having that problem. If they've overcome it, it's good to share those experiences. And then also looking at sharing resources. Again, we do touch on resources later on, but again, I think at this point, I just wanted to bring the plumbing focus group up, highlight it is key to helping everybody, and it is to help people deliver. Then we also use current practitioners across Wales, industry. I've spoken to employers in the plumbing sector. We've worked with the ex-president from CIPHE. while we've been developing this. We've had agreement through QIW, and their technical experts giving us feedback and refining content. As the qualification becomes operational, we will still be looking at updating them and making them relevant to reflect the latest regulations or technology changes within the industry. Okay, so moving on. Here are some frequently asked questions or questions you may have. Okay, so the EAL progression in building services engineering at level 2 has 2 pathways. Pathway A covers plumbing and heating, and it's aimed at 16+ age range. It's for learners who have achieved the foundation in construction and building services engineering, but do not yet have an apprenticeship. It would usually be delivered over 540 guided learning hours as a 1-year full-time course, but it could be delivered as an evening course to mature learners and others like that. So the opportunities from the progression. So for the level 3 building services engineering, you could go into heating and vent installation or craftsperson. We've got the plumbing and heating and the electrotechnical. For the level 3 in construction, we have bricklaying, architectural joinery, site carpentry, timber frame erection, solid plastering, dry lining, painting and decorating, roof slating and tiling, wall and floor tiling, and civil ops groundworks.
Sorry,
That gives you an idea. Hello?
Hi, Jason. I don't think we can see your slides. I couldn't see. I mean, I think someone's made a comment as well. They only have a black screen. Yeah, I can see it now.
Sorry, I do apologize. I don't know what's happened there. I do apologize, everybody. Right, so would you like me to go back a few slides then and just show you the slides, or shall I keep going? If somebody wants to type in.
If anyone wants to type in the chat.
Yeah, do you want me to go back over the slides, or do you want me to keep going now you can see them?
No one's responded. Maybe
right.
Just, I guess.
I'll carry on. We can recap it. As I say, we're just recapping at the moment, so the main slides that we need to focus on are the ones we're going to come on shortly. Okay, so as I say, there we've got these questions that have been asked. So I've listed the qualifications. I've gone through the progression from the progression onto the level 3. As we get onto the level 3, as I say, we'll be looking at hopefully going on to the plumbing and heating and carrying that through. Now, the key thing across all of these qualifications is we're using the same assessment methods. So across all of those that we've said within progression, the electrotechnical, the plumbing and heating, and all the construction, we use the same assessment methods. Moving on from that one, we have some timelines for the progression qualification. So if we look at these start at 2021, which will be the September coming. Learner A, they undertake the foundation and then they successfully achieve an apprenticeship. So they go on to the apprenticeship next year. So they will start this year on the foundation, and then next year they will progress straight onto an apprenticeship, whether it be in construction or building services. Learner B undertakes a foundation qualification or a level 1 qualification, which could be a level 1 diploma in plumbing installations that EAL do, and there are others, before moving into the level 2 progression qualification in BSc in 2022. Now, as you can see from there, they would then progress onto the qualification, the level 3 apprenticeship. If they do the broad level 1, they can then go into the foundation in construction and building services engineering in the relevant trade, and then in 2023 they would then progress straight onto the apprenticeship. So I'm just looking over. I've got, can we go to full screen please? I'm presenting on full screen. Misa, can you see that in full screen?
No, it's not. I think it may be one of those options.
Sorry,
I don't know if you can hover over it and maybe.
Which one can you see now? Sorry, which?
So we can see progression qualification 2021, 2022, 23, 24, but it's small. It's not full screen.
Right, so it's just the full. I've just got the full script, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm struggling somewhat on that one. I don't know. So if we can just take a few minutes while we see if we can get it to a full screen for you.
Maybe it's one of these. Yeah, well, you know, underneath it shows these 5 options. It could be one of those.
Which 5 options is it? These here?
Yeah, one of these. I think it would probably. Does it say what it does? If you just. Here we go.
Better?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, everybody. As I said, I've got the notes that the screen you were seeing was the screen I'm working off. It should have been showing the other screen, but hopefully now we have got to where we need to be and everybody can see what they need to see. Okay, so on that one then, option C, learner C, they come straight in 2022 and they do the apprenticeship. And they go straight onto that one. We've got to remember now that currently we've got dual running of the current BSc level 1, 2 and 3 diplomas in plumbing and heating for the next academic year, as well as the existing plumbing MVQs. So there is dual running of those. As we move on, I'm now going to start looking at the progression qualification and the content. Okay, so as we can see now, there is a slightly different feel to them. They are dual branded, so it's got City and Guilds and EAL on it. They'll have the qualification handbook or manual, and this will give you the centre requirements, the qualification content, the requirements for centre staff, and a summary of the assessment coverage. You'll also get an assessment pack, which we can see on the right of the screen, and a project pack. Now the assessment pack, it will give you the learner guidance in section 2. It will give you the assessor guidance for the on-screen assessment, the practical project, and the guided discussion. The practical project will actually contain all the tasks and everything for each of the jobs that they will be doing. What we've done is, these books are very generic. The front part is generic. The practical project will hold the plumbing specific elements of it. These will be available in Welsh shortly, and they'll be obtainable on the consortium website. Okay, so again, rule of combination, as I've said previously, what we've got 3 core units, 201, 202, 204. Now the core units go across all of BSc. So whichever you do, if you do the electrical or the plumbing, they're the same 3 units. If you actually went into the construction, they are the same 3 core units within construction as well. The only difference is there's a bias towards, obviously these that we're looking at now, there'll be a bias towards building services. In the construction, there's a bias to construction. So as well as there being a bias to the building services on these, there's also a bias towards plumbing and heating or electrotechnical, depending which pathway you take. Okay, you pick one trade-specific pathway, so it's either plumbing and heating or electrotechnical. It's 540 guided learning hours, and you've got to achieve a pass grade or higher in the 3 assessment methods. Now I'm going to go on to the rule of combination and the structure of them. So looking at this in more detail, you can see the top 3 are the generic ones. So employment and employability, changing practices over time, and planning and evaluating work. They're the 3 that will, as I've just said, sit across all of the BSc. Then below that, we've got the plumbing specific. So scientific principles, cold plumbing and heating, cold water, hot water, they're very specific to the plumbing. And then at the end, we have the performing unit. So I think the best way of thinking about this is we currently have a level 3 qualification and we have the level 2. If you think of how we currently have it, the level 2 is a precursor to the level 3 and sits within it. So what we've got here is, if you think of the level 3 as having 2 parts, what we've got on the screen now is part 1. Part 2 will be done in the level 3, but also if you go straight into the level 3, you will do these units as well within the level 3. So I'm just going to quickly go through what you can expect to find in each of these units. Okay, so moving down, we've got employment and employability. The areas that we're going to be looking at there are the trade relevant bodies and organisations within BSE, the main principles of self-employment in BSE, the importance of inter and intra-personal skills, solving problems within the scope of their responsibility. That's what we're going to cover in 201. In 202, we're going to look at the changing construction and built environment sector, the changes in building services, engineering, materials, tools, and techniques over time, the relationship between trades and the environment, connected practice in the construction and building services engineering. That's what we're looking there. We're then going to move on to 204, which is planning and evaluating work in the building services engineering sector in Wales. Okay, so what we're going to look at there, how to calculate costs and determine resource requirements, planning work, and the importance of evaluation of the work. So again, a new unit that covers those areas. So again, depending which area you cover, you will do all of those 3, but it will have a slight bias towards the specific trade you're looking at. As we've now moved down into these units, now what I will say at this point is they haven't changed. Plumbing hasn't changed as we've moved on. Still using the same methods and techniques. So what we've done with this, we've just tried to freshen it up a little, avoid duplication, and obviously used a new innovative way of assessing them. So again, as we start looking at this now, we've got scientific principles, units of measurements, properties of materials, relationships between energy, heat and power, principles of force and pressure and their application in the plumbing and heating industry, mechanical principles in the plumbing and heating industry, and the principles of electricity in the plumbing and heating industry. That's what we're going to cover there. Now moving on to the next one, Unit 206, understand core plumbing and heating systems. These units have been developed using the NOS. Now when we looked at the NOS, there was a lot of duplication across the different system types. So what we've done here, we've removed that duplication and put a core plumbing unit which covers what would have been the duplication. So relevant industry standards and regulations, how to verify that job information and documentation is current and relevant, how to produce a risk assessment and method statement, procedures confirming before work starts, that the work location and work area can be accessed safely, has been checked for the risk to other personnel on site and for taking appropriate action if a risk is present. As you can see, the NOS are very snappy titles. So we've copied those over, we've kept it the same. The methods for safe transportation and now disposal of waste materials, substances and liquids. The methods for determining that appliances, components and accessories are fit for purpose. The methods and techniques for inspecting and pre-commissioning the plumbing and heating system. How to complete relevant documentation. The methods and techniques for decommissioning the system. The methods and techniques to ensure plumbing and heating system cannot be accidentally reactivated or become dangerous. So that's what we've got there for 206. So those go across all of the system types. And then what we've got now, so if we look at 207, 208, 209 and 211, they'll have a generic theme that runs through them, but it's specific to each system type. So we'll be looking at the application, advantages and limitations of each system type, the application, advantages and limitations of appliance components and accessories in relation to the working environment. And again, that's relevant to the system type. And as an example, we pick cold water, we'll be looking at things for cold water, then we go to the other extreme of central heating. So it allows us to focus on the specifics of the system type. Then we'd move on to the methods and techniques for fitting, fixing and connecting the selected appliance components and accessories. And then finally, we'd do the appropriate testing procedure for confirming the system's integrity. We then move on or back to 210, which is rainwater. Now, level 2 in the progression, what we're going to look at, the application, advantages and limitations of rainwater, and the application, advantages and limitations of the appliances, components and accessories in relation to the working environment. That's what we're going to focus on at this point. The fitting and the testing and commission, we will put that into the level 3. And then we finally move on to the performing, 212, performing plumbing and heating system installation. What we're going to be looking at there is decommissioning systems and appliances, measuring and marking out, fit, fix and connect the selected appliance and components. We'll be carrying out a wide range of tasks in this trade area, inspecting and pre-commissioning appliances and components, and testing completed work to industry standards. Now, as you can see, there's quite a lot that I've just been through there. It is all in the manuals that you will have access to, so this will be part of the qualification manual or handbook. So you'll be able to find the units and it'll go into the detail of the units. But what I wanted to do was to give you a bit of a feel for what's included within these units and hopefully reassure you that there's nothing new that you're going to come across. This is what we've done before. Okay, these are the areas we've covered before. So hopefully that's give you some reassurance that you're not going to find anything untoward there. It is all what you've done before and it is all what you'd expect to find at level 2. So moving on now, again, just a quick summary of the guided learning hours. So this is all supervised learning. It's 540 guided learning hours, which is made up of the core units, 100 guided learning hours, the pathways, 378, and the assessments, 62 guided learning hours. Then, as we've got below, we've got the total qualification time, which is made up of the teaching, hours spent in preparation, study, undertaking some formative assessment. So it's the supervised and unsupervised areas that are added together. This has a TQT of 600 hours, which equates to 60 credits. So that's basically where we're up to. It's give you an overview of the rule of combination, the structure, how it's set up, and what you can expect to find within the units. So now what I want to do, I want to move on to the unit structure. Again, it's nothing that you haven't seen before. It's just obviously in new documentation. So as we move into this one now, you will see there'll be learning outcomes, which are the high level statements of what they need to be able to do. Below that, we'll set the assessment criteria, which breaks down the learning outcome into smaller areas. And then under the assessment criteria, we will have the range. This then breaks it down even further. So the assessment criteria could be on pipe work, different types of pipe work. The range could be copper, plastic, low carbon steel, or whatever it would be. So that's how the range does it. The range breaks it right down, takes it down. Now, these aren't exhaustive. This is to give you some guidance on what we're expecting to go, what we expect you to teach. Now, moving on, the structure of the unit, this is a core unit, so this is one of the shared units across BSc. On this one, it has the unit number and the title. It'll have the guided learning hours. It will have a brief description. So again, what the learner's going to learn, what they're going to come across, the areas they're looking at, so the summary of the learning outcomes, and then some initial questions a learner or learners may ask themselves. So what's the relationship between trades and the environment? So these are things they can ask themselves as they move into the unit, and then hopefully they will satisfy or answer that question for themselves as they go through. As we move on now, the core unit again. So this is going back to what we said. So we have the learning outcome, which is there. We then have the criteria and the range that sit under that learning outcome. And then something new that you will see is a delivery outcome, the depth of the content. Now that there will give you more depth and guidance on what we want you to deliver to the learner. So that there hopefully expands on 1.1, tells you what the learner will be able to do after you've covered it. And again, it then gives the learner some help to see what they should be able to do. It gives you help and guidance when you're doing the teaching. So now as we move on, I'm going to look at a plumbing unit. And again, you'll see it's exactly the same. We have the unit number and the title. We have the guided learning hours. We have the brief description. We have the summary of the learning outcomes, and then the questions the learner could ask themselves. And then progressing on from that, you can then see how it's set up now for the plumbing. I put cold water there, so you can see on there, this is what we've got. We've got the learning outcome, we've got the criteria, the range, and this is what a learner should be able to do. So that is giving you guidance. These are the areas we're going to be looking at assessing them on. This is what we'd expect them to be able to do after they've covered that unit. So now I'm going to move on to the summary of the assessments that we've got. So if we recall, we have 3 different assessment methods. We have the on-screen assessment method, the practical project, and the guided discussion. What you can see from there, we have a weighting. That is what they contribute to the overall grade of the qualification. So the on-screen is 20%, the main one is the practical project at 60%, and the guided discussion at 20%. So if you just go back and look at the on-screen assessment, this covers the learning outcome 201 and 202, the core ones that are trade, and then all the trade knowledge and understanding, which is the main focus of the test. It is a closed book test, and they will require a non-programmable calculator for some of the scientific principles. We then move on to the practical project. That covers Unit 204, the planning and evaluating work, and Unit 212, which is the performing plumbing and heating system installations. Learners are going to undertake 3 tasks, which will involve them performing plumbing work, plumbing and heating work, and then they will evaluate their own performance. The guided discussion focuses on Unit 201, which is employment and employability in the BSE sector, and Unit 204, planning and evaluating work. All the assessments and the qualification is graded pass, merit and distinction. All these assessments will be available in the Welsh language. Okay, and they will be available on the consortium's website, Skills for Wales website. They're out at the moment to be translated, so as they are translated, they will be put up onto that website. So again, moving on, a bit more detail on the on-screen assessment. It's multi-choice questions. There are 50 questions and it will take 75 minutes. It's recommended it's completed prior to doing the practical project and guided discussion. So we move now on to the practical project. It's made up of 3 unique tasks. They're going to plan what that they will do. For each task, they will plan, perform, and evaluate. Again, it's graded pass, merit, distinction. The practical project must be taken before the guided discussion. So again, within this, they're going to plan out the works required for the plumbing, what they're going to do in the context of a larger job. So they'll be going to a building site or an extension. So they will look at it there. They'll perform the practical task. So there'll be 3 separate tasks, but they will be interlinked within the assessment. And then they will evaluate what they've done, the approaches they've taken, the quality of the outcome. So that's the sort of thing that we're looking at. Also within the practical project, they've got their opportunity to demonstrate wider employability skills, again covering Unit 201, and these include calculation of costs and resources, time management, effective planning, setting personal targets, and problem solving. So now as we look into the graded discussion, the guided discussion, that follows on from the practical project, and it will pick up elements of the practical project. So they'll look at what they've done and they will relay that, the planning and the evaluation of what they've done, reflecting back on the practical project. But it also goes further and it covers the employment and employability. So there are 2 parts to this guided discussion, but they will take place on one timed sitting. I'll cover that in more detail shortly. So moving on to an on-screen example. So these are the on-screen, the MCQs that you will do on the on-screen assessment. So again, these are construction, but it's just to give you an example. And the typical ones we've got, they'll be picture-based, traditional multi-choice, drag and drop, and multi-select. So they're the sorts of things that will be available within these. We've tried to make it a bit more interactive as we've gone through it. And the multi-choice questions, the on-screen exams, they will be available from January the 3rd, 2020. So the qualification will be going live in September, but the online exams, on-screen exams, they will be going live from January the 3rd, 2022. Okay, so if we just have a bit more of a look at the practical project. Okay, so they've got 60 hours in total to do this. 14 hours is allocated to planning, 40 hours to carrying out the tasks, and 6 hours to evaluating. So when we look at the planning, the learners are going to have to create a resource list, a customer estimate, a risk assessment and method statement, a schedule of works, and they're also going to indicate their own success criteria. So they're going to set their success criteria for going through it. This is going to be completed within a classroom and it'll be monitored by centre staff. To support ongoing assessment, the assessor must mark the planning element and confirm that a minimum threshold for a pass has been achieved in all 3 task plans before the learner made progress to the performing element of the practical project. But only the mark from the highest scoring plan will contribute to the overall project. So in that, they will do 3 plans. They must meet a threshold pass in all 3 plans, but the plan that is the highest scoring will be used for the overall grade of the qualification. Okay, now moving on to the performing element. This is going to consist of 3 tasks. The learner will use the plans he created previously. And this will be carried out in the centre's workshop, again, supervised at all times by centre staff. You've got 40 hours to do these. You can't use time from the others. So if they do the planning in 10 hours, they can't add the other 4 hours to the 40. And likewise, the other way, they can't take hours from the performing over to the evaluating. And also the assessor must take photographic evidence of the completed work. So that is a slight change that we are asking for that now. We want photographic evidence of the completed work. And then the evaluation of this. So what you've got to do, once you've completed the performing, you do 1 evaluation report, and it covers all of the projects, all of the tasks. So they're going to look at their own evaluation on the planning, Did they meet success criteria? What would they have done differently? They're going to then start looking at that and put an evaluation together of what they need to cover and what they've done. This again is taken in a classroom environment under supervision from centre staff. They will need the planning documentation available to them so they can use that and review it as they're doing the evaluating activity. If a learner fails the assessment, they're permitted to resubmit. Learners are only required to resubmit any elements of the assessment that they fail, so not the whole project. Further guidance will be provided on what the resits look like within the qualification manual and the assessment pack. So moving on to that now, I want to bring into what we will be getting them to do for the plumbing and heating. So here what I've done, we've got an overall brief. We have the 3 tasks that they've got. So task 1 is install a wash and basin and WC. The next one is install a hot water cylinder. And then task 3 is install a central heating boiler jig and a radiator. So as you can see from that, there are 3 distinct tasks, but also, as I did say, they are interlinked because they are in the same space. So the cold feed will be the same cold feed that you will use across them all, and that's how it will be. The hot water will do the cylinder, but it will also run to the basin. We have the simulated boiler jig. We're not going to do a gas connection on this. Obviously, we're only looking at plumbing. And then from that, what we would look at then, this is the fitting the wash and basin and the WC. This is what they would get. And again, on the top left there, we've got a brief overview of what they would do. Now within the pack, we would also provide more guidance to the learner. We'll provide guidance to the centre and to the assessors of what we would expect them to be doing. Now from that, we do provide a materials list, a tools list to help you as the centre, but this is just for you as the centre. We would expect the learner to develop their own. This is just to help you when you're managing these assessments. Then if we look on the right hand side of the screen, you can see that we've got the tasks. This is how we mark them. So again, we'll put on there, these are the measurements. We do have a diagram that has the aspect ID on. So where I'm asking for that measurement, maintain the measurement from the center of the toilet system to the right hand wall 500 millimeters, and I've put an aspect ID of A1. Within the pack, there will be a mark showing A1, so you all know which area to go and to measure. And again, it's within plus or minus 2 millimeters. That's when they get the highest marks. Plus or minus 5 millimeters, they get the 2 marks. Plus or minus 10 or anything, they get the 1 mark. So that's how we've put it together, because again, these are graded. So this was the method we used to get them graded. So hopefully you can start to see now what we're putting together and how we're supporting you with delivering these qualifications and assessments. So let's move on to the guided discussion. Okay, it's 2 parts, completed in 1 time sitting. It's internally marked, externally verified, and it's going to last for 40 minutes. It's going to explore the learner's knowledge within the chosen trade area. So for this one, it's going to be the plumbing. And also it goes into the self-employment in plumbing or their chosen trade. So that's what we go into there. And it gives them the ability to reflect on the tasks. Okay, so within this one, what we've done, I'm sorry, I've just lost my train of thought then. Within the assessment part we've created, it gives you all the instructions of how to deliver the guided discussion and all the parameters around it. We will also be giving consortium training in how to deliver the discussion, the guided discussion assessments, because obviously it's something new. We're going to put that support in. Once we've done that, we've provided that support and the guidance within the pack. what we'll be looking for then is before you go in to do a guided discussion, you will get or develop questions. So we help to structure and it supports the guided discussion. We will give you the guidance within the assessment pack. And I'm just going to give you some examples of what the questions will be focusing on. So if we're looking at planning, evaluation and reflection, it's what happened, what did they expect to happen, what things surprised them or didn't go fully as intended, what would they do different next time, what have they learned about how they work and their practice in relation to the activities conducted. So they're the sorts of things what we're looking at. Then when we look at the self-employment and wider career development, these are the sorts of areas we're looking at questions. And again, this guidance is in the assessment pack for you. What are the characteristics of being self-employed and why are these important to consider? What are the advantages and disadvantages of being self-employed? What trade bodies and organisations exist within plumbing and how would they interact with them if they were self-employed? So they're the areas that we've given you. That's an example. But then what we've done, we've also provided example questions. So to supplement that, so it'll be, how did you keep on track with time and pace of work within your projects? What were your own set objectives, success criteria and milestones? Did you meet them? So what we've done, we've given you an idea of where the questions should be focused. We've then given you some example questions, but we also build into the assessment pack and project pack more guidance for you on how to do that, how to bring that together. And really it's to help yourselves and also make it as comfortable as we can for the learner, because this is going to be something new to them. The guided discussion needs to be recorded, not visual, just an audio recording. Obviously, with doing recordings and anything else like that, we have to make sure it's captured and stored in line with GDPR. So we have to be mindful of that. And again, if a learner fails to do the assessment, they can do a resit. When they do a resit, the full range of marks and grades are still available. So what I want to do now is just recap on this one, what we've got. So the on-screen assessment, MCQs, externally set, auto marked, you get your results on the same day. The practical project is internally marked, externally verified, and what we will do, we will give provisional marks following the internal assessment, and they will be confirmed by EAL and they'll be sent out to you. And then again, the guided discussion is internally marked, externally verified, and as I've said before, provisional marks will be awarded. They will be confirmed by EAL. So again, what we're looking at there, provisional grades should be given to the learner within 1 week of completion. They will undergo both internal and external quality assurance, and the final grading will be issued by EAL. On the resubmissions, they can resubmit and they are available to get all the marks that are available on to them. Okay, now what I'm going to touch on now, and I'm just going to lightly touch on these, are the resources. So this is what you've seen them before, but it's just to remind you of the resources that are available. More will be coming online as we move on, but these are what we've done and what we're intending to do moving forward. So again, we're going to do them in both English and Welsh. And as we can see there will be some quick guides and support material for you. So a quick guide, if you're going to run any of the qualifications, look at the right-hand side of the screen, what you need, how you register your learners, what you need for delivery, what part of delivery. So we'll build up on that. So we give you those sheets that you can quickly refer to, and it just helps you as you're developing these qualifications and thinking of moving into them. We've also got preparation for delivery. It's an interactive or editable spreadsheet which you can add and adapt to make it like a scheme of work for you. So what you're going to be covering in which week. We've done some pre-populated ones, but there are blank ones that you can use to alter and make fit what you want to deliver for the learners. We're then looking at CPD. Now, obviously for the assessors and tutors, lecturers, we've got the CPD. We're going to be bringing these together. We're going to be giving newsletters quarterly to pull these things up, try and get you up-to-date CPD. We're going to be working with manufacturers and all other areas just to make sure that you kept up to date with your CPD. It doesn't take away from what you're already doing. It just supplements that. Moving on from that, there will be links to shared resources. So again, at this point, we've got resources that are available. We're going to be linking to the likes of CI, we'll be in discussions with the likes of CIPHE and others to see what we can share with them. We've got centres that are already sharing materials with us, which is great. We will be developing resources, but again, I'd like to link this one back to what I did say before about the plumbing focus group. This will be excellent. We've got all these resources that we're going to be sharing with you. We're going to be linking you and directing them to you, or directing you to them. But it'd also be great if we, as a group, could share resources and help and support as we move through this. So that's something, again, if you're not part of the plumbing focus group, please do get in touch with me, and I'll make sure that you're invited into those meetings. So again, looking at the resources we've got now, we've got initial bank of resources, which is new. These are for the foundation, which is being started delivered. So they're available, you can look at them. Further bank are coming on. So we're looking at, for all the main trade units, progression qualification, we're looking at delivery guidance. That's by the 1st of September 21. And obviously the apprenticeship level 3, we're looking at 21-22. Obviously with that not going live till 22, that gives us a bit more scope on that one. Again, we're going to be linking to existing resources produced by third parties. They'll be on the Skills for Wales website, CPD materials. So again, that's the sort of things. Employer materials, like we've got, again, as we move on to the employer sign-off, those materials are being developed and all the other things. So again, we are working behind the scenes in developing these. These will all go on the Skills for Wales website and they will be available in English and in Welsh. This one again, I've just put this on. Obviously, we're not looking at the foundation, but it's just a reminder that if you are doing the foundation, there are some brilliant materials that have been developed for the foundation. And we've got Hodder publications as well. They've done that, so they've actually done them now. I think they're out for review, the core units and everything else that they've got for the foundation. But what they've also done, they've put free mapping documents together. So if you're using those documents or those books currently, there will be mapping documents that are available that will take you through from the qualifications into the documents and hopefully make it a bit more cost effective for you. Okay, so the next steps. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but just to look at where we are at the moment. So if we start part way down where we're in April on the top, so resources are already coming online now. You've got access to them, or you can get access to them through the Skills for Wales website. April to May, approvals open for the progression and level 3. We are in the final stages of getting the approval for the progression. They went in for submission for just before Easter. We're now going for approval within the next week or so. So everything's quite hectic at the moment. We're just getting everything in place, doing any changes that QW want. But we're looking at that is imminent the approval for the progression. The level 3 will follow on a month or so behind. What we're going to do, as like this one, May to July, more keep in touch webinars. We're going to be helping you with this process going through things. Then September 21, we've got the first teaching the foundation and progression. And we're going to have go live webinars to help and support you. There is a big piece of work going on change management to help and support as well as the webinar. So that's all going on as well. November 21, we're going to have network events. Hopefully they'll be face to face and we can get out, keep in touch with you, help you, make sure everybody's, all going in the right direction. And then October, November, teaching and learning assessment webinar. So we'll go into more detail on the teaching, learning and assessment as we start moving on. So again, we're going to keep helping you and supporting you throughout this whole process. We all want it to be a success. It is a slight step change from what we're used to, but being involved with it as long as I have and seeing what we've done, it is nothing new to what we've done, to what we've taught, to how we've done it. It's just a different way of assessing it. And I think that is the key thing. Take the confidence and comfort that what you've taught previously, how you've taught things, it's going to fall quite nicely in line with this. Now, this is quite a busy slide, but basically it goes through the learner journeys. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to talk through this, but basically when this slide deck goes out, it's something for you there. I think it's quite useful for you to have as a quick reference. You can look through, right, I've got somebody coming through now, they're doing this, where should I take them next year? So it gives you a bit of a guidance on where they should be going. And then obviously next year in 2022, it becomes slightly simpler in so much that they will stop the dual running. So it'll be the foundation and the progression that we're looking at. So again, this is an example or some examples of what you can or you can't do. And then we're finishing this now. The next webinar is next Thursday. That's in the afternoon. So if you have any colleagues that want to come and join the webinar, go through it, then please do give them the date, get them to register. And as you can see, we've also on the bottom right there, we've got when the electrotechnical ones are. So people that want that. Obviously the construction ones are there as well. All the dates are available. You can register for any of those. And now it's questions. So I'm going to bring over the questions, and please, if you could type any in, we can see what we've got. So apologies at the beginning about not being on full screen and the slides setup how it went. So we've had one, we do have current level 1 students who are progressing to the new progression qualification in September 2021. They're currently doing the 7202. Right, brilliant. So again, that is a nice step change. I'm not sure whether you'd need to, this is from Ian, I hope you don't mind bringing your name up, Ian. Yeah, I think on that one, it's just look at how they come across, what they will need to do coming into the progression, because they will have missed elements of the foundation. So on them coming across, you would need to get more information, and what we can do, we can look at that again. I haven't got that information at hand, but I will get back to you. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask? Ian, you've got your hand up there, Ian. What I'm going to do, I'm going to unmute you, and then if you unmute yourself, you can speak then. Do you want to unmute Ian and then say something? Right, I think you'll have to unmute yourself, Ian. I've unmuted everybody. Hello?
Sorry, yeah, sorry, Jason. Just unmuted that now. No, that's fine. Yeah, it was just the question regarding the level 1 learners that we've got currently this year going on to the progression qualification. That's all.
Yeah, I'd just check on that one. As I say, I'm not going to give you a definitive answer because I haven't got that information, but I'm not sure whether there'll be an expectation of them going on to the foundation before the progression. We will get that information to you. I'll look into that and respond to you again, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's what we were led to believe by Qualifications Wales, that would be an option. So yeah, if you could get back to me.
Yeah, if you spoke with them, I was going to go to them myself. I wasn't sure. So if you've had that confirmation from them, then that's brilliant. Well, that sounds the right way, because was that Dean that gave you that information?
Dean and Daniel, yeah, I think either one of those two, yeah.
Well, if they give you that information, then I'm just going to go and ask them. If they've already done that, then please carry on doing what you were doing.
Yeah, okay, fine, brilliant.
Excellent. Any other questions from anyone? I've unmuted you all, so if you unmute yourself, you can ask the question if you want. Stunned silence. I think that was when the slides went funny at the beginning, was it? It's thrown you all. Okay, well, I'm just going to go through the next few slides. We're going to have some feedback, so you will, as Anne Harrod said at the beginning, get an email after this. Please give us feedback. It does help us. We can make things look better, give you the information that you want, because ultimately this is about you guys that are going to be delivering this. You know, you need the right information, enough information, so that you're prepared for when it does come down the road. And in September 2021, we are delivering this. You're as prepared as you can be. But I think as well, what I would like to say at that point is, we don't step back then. We are still here. We will help you as much as we possibly can. Because again, it is a step change. We want to make sure you're successful, like the qualifications are successful, and ultimately the learner gets exactly what the learner needs. It's the right qualification for that learner. And finally, thanks for listening. If you have any further questions, please contact either the Skills for Wales website, or I think the majority of you have my email anyway. Please contact me if there's anything, no matter how big or small, please contact me. Sometimes it's easier to have the conversation. You know, the question, it could be, you know, something that's really you're struggling with, and it could just be a quick 2-minute clarification, and then it all makes sense. So again, this is supporting you, and what I want to do is, if you need anything at any point, please do contact me or anyone else within the consortium. Will give you as much help as we possibly can. Okay, are there any other questions? No? Well, what I will do then, rather than keep you all hanging on, I really do appreciate your time, and apologies for the confusion at the beginning of the presentation, but I hope you've all taken something from this. I hope you're all a little clearer on what's the progression qualification look like, what the assessments are, how they're going to be delivered. So hopefully you've got that, a bit of a feel for it. The documents will be available shortly on Skills for Wales website, so you can start looking at those. Again, getting a feel for it, putting in place what I've been saying, seeing how it all joins together. And then hopefully, when September 2021 comes, which isn't far away, you'll be all ready to deliver it, and it will be quite an easy transition